Can changing your microbiome, the bacteria makeup in your gut, help you defeat type 2 diabetes? Well, there's one company that says it can, and they claim they have the evidence to prove it. So let's learn a little bit more about that. My name is Lee Kelso. Good to have you here. This is HealthCall Live Online, where we offer extended interviews that we feature shorter versions of on our weekly radio broadcast. I want to welcome to the program Colleen Cutcliffe, who is the CEO of Pendulum Therapeutics. She's with us from the Bay Area. Colleen, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Lee.
So let's talk about the big picture concept of medical foods. Can you put some words behind that and help me understand what you're talking about there?
Sure. In the world of health products, there are pharmaceutical drugs, which I think we're all very familiar with, and then there are dietary supplements, which I think we're also very familiar with. The therapeutic drugs are heavily regulated by the FDA, require lots of different trials in order to get approval, to get to the market, and then require a prescription from your doctor in order to get access to those products. Supplements, on the other hand, are available at your local grocery store, do not require a doctor's prescription, and have none of that FDA oversight that pharmaceutical drugs have. And so you'll often see on supplements the label that says, not FDA approved. There is a middle ground, which is known as medical foods, and this is something where you can run clinical trials similar to the ones you would do for a pharmaceutical drug in order to demonstrate that a product works for a particular problem, but you can sell it directly to the consumer. And so it is intended to be under a doctor's supervision, but you don't have to get a prescription from your physician in order to get access to the product. So as we think about the world of tomorrow and having products that actually work and have clinical efficacy behind them, but being able to get them more accessible to the broader community, medical foods offers a wonderful opportunity for the microbiome.
And what brought us together today is a product that Pendulum Therapeutics is marketing called Glucose Control. Now, can you tell me exactly what this product is doing in my body and who should use it?
Yes, this product is essentially helping you with metabolism of certain foods and helping you with your gut health. And so there are two primary things that the product is doing. One is that it's helping you to metabolize fiber into butyrate, and this is a multi-step pathway that only your gut microbiome can do. You actually can't metabolize these fibers yourself to get butyrate. And butyrate is a pretty well-known small molecule that helps you with glucose and insulin control. So, every time you eat something with sugar in it, you experience a glucose spike followed by a glucose crash. Many of us go through this roller coaster throughout the day of these spikes and crashes. And so what this helps to do is to minimize those spikes and minimize those crashes by helping you to metabolize fiber into butyrate, which helps with that regulation in your body. The second thing that the product does is it helps you to regulate your gut lining. And that's really important because you have your gut microbiome doing all this work inside your gut, and you want to keep that work inside your gut. For people who have so-called leaky gut, this is where their gut lining is not properly regulated. And then all these things that the gut microbiome is creating are able to get across their gut lining and into their bloodstream. And that's one of the things that causes a heightened inflammatory and immune response, which we're all trying to avoid. And so the product really helps with the metabolism of fiber as well as this gut lining regulation. And we designed it for people with type 2 diabetes who really have the metabolic syndrome and the inability to do these things at a pretty extreme place. However, most of us are pretty much on the march towards metabolic syndrome. There are 30 million people in the US with type 2 diabetes, 80 million people with pre-diabetes. And so when you add that together, you're really talking about a third to half of the population in the US alone. And this is a global epidemic. And so when we talk about the ability to improve metabolism, this is something that, broadly speaking, should be applicable to anybody who's trying to control the way that their body metabolizes fibers and sugars.
Man, there's a lot to unpack there. And, I completely agree. In our area, particularly here in the Midwest, more than half of everybody listening is either diabetic or pre-diabetic. So yeah, it is a huge problem. Okay, so are you telling me that your product, Glucose Control, is for everyone who is pre-diabetic? Is there benefit that I can take to help avoid becoming diabetic?
Yes, I mean, it's quite well known that diet and exercise are two important pillars for keeping yourself from becoming coming down with prediabetes as well as type 2 diabetes. But there's sort of this third pillar, which is the microbiome, which people really haven't known very much about until now. And so it's not just about your diet and your exercise, but it's also about how all of those things are processed inside of your body. I think all of us can remember a time where we were able to eat or drink or do whatever we wanted, and we didn't have to worry about our metabolism. And the idea is that as we go through things like aging or stress or certain environmental factors that are outside of our control, we lose these certain gut microbes, which are important for our metabolism. So even if you're dieting and exercising and doing all that stuff really well, if you don't have that third pillar of the microbiome, you're really missing out on something that's going to help you avoid getting prediabetes and type 2 diabetes.
So do I need, you said I should do this in conjunction with my doctor, but I don't need a prescription. So I'm able to buy this product over the counter, correct?
Yes, we're selling it online, so you can buy it yourself.
Okay. But you want me to work with my doctor and include it in my care.
Yes, I think it's really important when you're tackling a particular disease that you are talking to your doctor about all the different things that you're doing. And so a physician is well positioned to look at the evidence, look at the clinical trial data, and say whether this is something that could work or not work for you. And so what we don't want is for people to go entirely rogue on their own, trying something that is totally outside of their plan. We really want them to integrate this as part of their whole plan for health. And so this is why we want people to talk to their physicians about it. And this is a really distinguishing factor from other supplements where people will take supplements and they might let their doctor know about it or they might not. But what we're asking people to do is to really integrate this into your health plan because it will lower A1C and blood glucose. And these are things that your physician is measuring for your health.
So tell me a little bit more about your research on that. You've done multi-center placebo-controlled trials, so a legitimate study. And what were your outcomes?
So, the first of all, I'll say that this company has existed for 7 years, 6.5 of those which were dedicated to research, starting in the lab with isolation, and then manufacturing, and then preclinical studies, followed by a few different clinical studies. And so, the most recent one that we did was in patients with early stage type 2 diabetes. So, either trying to do diet and exercise alone or on metformin. And when they took the product, this, as you pointed out, is a placebo-controlled, double-blinded, randomized trial across 6 different sites in the U.S. And when you compared the people who were on product for 12 weeks compared to people who were on placebo for 12 weeks, we saw that A1C lowered by 0.6% and that the area under the curve for the meal tolerance test reduced by 33%. And so these are pretty significant changes to both A1C and blood glucose, in fact, akin to many drugs that are out there. But the product is a probiotic. So these are all natural strains and prebiotics in there. There's no chemical drug in the product itself.
So A1C measures the amount of sugar that is attached to hemoglobin and affects your body's ability to move oxygen through the tissues. So people know that number or know that phrase. I'm not sure they understand exactly what it means. So dropping that A1C level is significant, and 0.6%. Now you're going to have to help me with that. What relate that to a medication? How much more effective is that than or related to a medication, and how effective it may be?
It's essentially on par with many of the medications that are out there, including metformin and sulfonylureas, even insulin for some people. And so it's very effective. And I'll just point out that in our trial, most of the people were on metformin. So if you are on metformin, you'll experience an improvement in your A1C likely. And if you take Pendulum Glucose Control on top of that, you'll get this additional boost, additional decrease in A1C. So it can be taken on top of these medications to help even bolster more efficacy.
Interesting. So how do I feel while I'm taking this? Am I going to notice any change?
Well, if you've ever had a A1C measurement and then it changed, it's very hard to feel that. It's really a blood test that you require your doctor to order for you and then look at those results. However, one of the things that people have been describing and experiencing with the product is improvements in GI and digestion. And so 9 out of 10 of our customers actually, within the first month, they're feeling GI improvements. And then the other thing that you might not necessarily expect is that we have about 70% of people reporting that they are experiencing improved energy. And when you think about it, if you go through your day on this roller coaster of big glucose spikes and big glucose crashes, that you really are on a roller coaster all day long, and it's exhausting to be on that roller coaster. And so if you minimize those, it actually shows itself to your body and to your mind as improved energy. And so energy and GI improvements are two things that we were not necessarily expecting, but people are definitely experiencing. Additionally, we get people reporting improved sleep. Again, it's because of how your body is metabolizing these foods. That's likely the reason for that. And even some people have improved skin.
Wow, that's interesting. So, is this doing a reset of my microbiota, just a makeup of everything that's in my gut? And is it permanent, or will I revert if I stop taking the product?
It's not doing a whole hog reset. And this is really an important point. There are only a few ways to whole hog reset your microbiome. One is by taking antibiotics. Another is by altering your diet. So, for example, if you go from being a carnivore to becoming a vegetarian, you will sort of whole hog change your microbiome. We are targeting these very specific pathways. And so if you take the product and you look at the changes in a person's microbiome, you will not see these big global changes. And that's a good thing. We're not trying to change everything. We're trying to have a targeted approach that helps with functions that people are missing. And so when you look at those functions, you can see that they have improved for individuals. And so that's really important for anybody who does microbiome testing. You really need to test for this pathway in particular, not general changes.
Do I do people with type 2 diabetes have a different gut makeup than I'll say a normal metabolism?
Yes, it does appear that people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes and obesity, the whole metabolic syndrome, have varying differentiation from the so-called healthy gut microbiome. And so there have been quite a few studies, both here in the US and really globally, some very large ones done in China and Europe and in the US, looking at people with type 2 diabetes and demonstrating pretty clearly that there are real differences in their microbiomes and their functionality.
You mentioned that I should be in consult with my physician, I assume my endocrinologist or my family care doctor, whoever's managing my diabetes. Are they going to know about your product? Those guys often they don't like to change, right?
Well, I think that physicians tend to be very conservative and want to see a lot of data before they recommend a product to their patient. And so I agree with that. And they're also very reliant on the FDA system, which has been put in place in order to give them assurances that there has been a third party, the FDA, really checking the credibility of different products. And so I think asking your doctor to recommend the product and to know deeply about it is probably, to your point, a little bit of a stretch. However, if you tell them about the product and they happen to know about the gut microbiome and be well read on that, I think that what we're finding is that primary care physicians, diabetes educators, naturopaths, people who have been spending a lot of time with patients and thinking about their health from a holistic standpoint do tend to understand the microbiome and understand the importance of metabolizing to butyrate and understand the importance of gut lining. And so these individuals, once you share with them the ingredients and the data, which is on our website, they do tend to really promote the product, advocate for it, certainly not dissuade people from taking it.
So let's talk a little bit about how I buy the product. I've been to your website and I see that you offer three different variations. I can do a trial, for example, a one-off, did I get that correct? And then a 3-month and then a subscription, and there's a different price for each. Can you walk me through how that works?
Sure. What we're trying to do is to create options for different people's desires and tastes and how they want to control the way in which they receive product. And so the first is that you can just buy a single bottle, and that gives you a chance to see if you're experiencing any of these other effects like GI or improved energy within the first month. It's literally impossible to see an A1C change until 12 weeks in because of the hemoglobin cells in your body. They turn over every 12 weeks. And so you don't see a change in the percentage of them that are glycosylated until you've had that 12-week period of a full turnover. So that's the downside to the single bottle. You'll likely not see the relevant changes of A1C and blood glucose. The 3-month bundle is intended to be sort of the, all right, I want to get the minimum package to make me believe that this is working. And with that, we offer a free A1C test at the beginning so you can know what your starting A1C test is, and then one at the end of 3 months so that you can see the change. And so, and there's also nutrition consultations offered with that so that you can help figure out what are the fibers that might be helping to enhance the efficacy of the product, and then also just help people live better and eat better. The subscription is the lowest price, but actually gives you the most. So you get the pills every month, and you have ongoing A1C testing. So if you want to know, hey, how did I do after 3 months? What about after 6 months? This A1C testing is complimentary. And there are also these nutrition consultations of which people can have follow-on nutrition consultations. And these tend to be really beneficial as people are thinking about what are the foods that I can be eating? How do I think about my nutrition? Especially if they're experiencing any changes to their physiology while taking the product. They really have a nutritionist to speak with. These are registered dietitians. And so they're really getting helpful data along those lines. For every single one of those options, we also offer a money-back guarantee. And the reason is because we believe this product will work. It's clinically shown to work. And we want it to work for you. We're not out to scam anybody. We're not trying to pull a fast one on anyone. And so if you take the product and it doesn't work for you, money-back guaranteed. That's part of our promise to you as we are really trying to help people improve their diabetes and prediabetes.
Okay, so if I'm a listener, I'm wondering now, what is this going to cost? Can you give us just kind of a rough outline of the monthly cost?
Yes, it ranges from $165 a month for the subscription model to $198 a month for the single bottle. And I said that we started this company 7 years ago. We isolated these strains. We've been manufacturing them. These strains are actually very unique. You cannot find this combination anywhere on the market today, and we actually manufacture ourselves. And there's a category of microbes which are called strict anaerobes. And what that means is that you cannot have a single molecule of oxygen enter the manufacturing during any part of the process, or the whole batch dies. And so we've had to build out our own manufacturing plant because they don't really exist out there, these pure end-to-end anaerobic chambers. And so if you want to geek out on microbiology and manufacturing, we basically have an entirely closed system where no oxygen can get into the system at all so that these strains can have the viability that's needed for them to work for patients.
I would love to see that process sometime, so we'll have to figure that out. Tell me about what is next. What other conditions, what other illnesses are you targeting? What's in the pipeline?
Well, I think that there's a couple of things. So the first is this product is for people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, but the microbiome space is still very young. And we believe that there's an opportunity to have products that are really targeting different individuals and different individual needs. We're at a very early stage of understanding the microbiome, how it interacts with an individual and their diet and exercise and environment. And so we're working really hard to understand for which people could we actually improve the efficacy of this product. And so there will be likely down the road new products that come out that will benefit people in additional ways for their metabolic syndrome. Beyond that, we're also really looking at IBS. This is irritable bowel syndrome, and it is a very big problem in the US. Essentially, if you have IBS, it's very hard to really enjoy life. Every time you go out to eat, every time you travel, it's extremely painful to the GI system. And so we've been collaborating with Johns Hopkins trying to develop a product that's really targeted towards people with IBS.
Oh, yeah, I get that connection. That's very interesting. Yeah, IBS is often thought to be linked to that leaky gut syndrome that you just mentioned, where the endothelial lining of the intestines break down, and the butyrates are often very helpful there. So yeah, I see how that could work. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Tell me something you have learned in all your years of research, uh, and how you live your life differently because of it. How can I benefit from your life lessons?
Well, we're always learning a lot every day. I would say with the microbiome, there's just a awareness that there is this third pillar to your health. Again, I think we often think, well, I've got to eat the right foods and I've got to do the right exercise, but actually, the microbiome is this third pillar. And so, every time, as I said, we travel, or we take antibiotics, or we go into a different time zone, your circadian rhythm changes and your sleep cycle changes, you are changing your microbiome. And so I think just being aware that when you do those things, expecting that there will be a change that you experience is something that allows, I think, me to know, okay, well, I've traveled and it's not just that my diet and my exercise have changed, my microbiome is probably changing. And probably the most key lesson to learn is that when I take my Pendulum Glucose Control, it's really helping to regulate all of that. So what you can do is go to pendulumlife.com and purchase glucose control to help stabilize your microbiome and provide you with these functions that are really important for maintaining and improving metabolism.
Colleen Cutcliffe is the CEO of Pendulum Therapeutics. She's a PhD, much bioscience in her background. She's brought that to the market with Pendulum Glucose Control. And again, you can learn more about that at pendulumlife.com. Colleen, thank you.
Thank you so much.